So we now have our 3 relegation places decided this season in the Championship, and we also have a little bit more clarity in and around the top 6. We're back for the Championship roundup. Let's jump into it. Guys, plenty to discuss in today's video. We've got a managerial departure, 2 more relegations to go over, Reading survival this season, more moving parts going on around the top of the Championship, and we've also got some midweek action to go ahead and preview as well. So get all your thoughts in the comments down below, as well as what you see happening over the midweek matches. But without any further ado, let's jump into the games. And starting out on Friday night, first of all, congratulations to Huddersfield, who have guaranteed their place in the playoffs for the end of the season, winning this one by 2 goals to 1 and ultimately relegating Barnsley in the process. So commiserations to Barnsley fans, but I think this one's been on the cards for quite some time, really. Huddersfield setting the tone for this game really early on, taking the lead after just 4 minutes through Jordan Rhodes. Another example of how potent this Huddersfield squad has been from set-piece situations. Lovely link up between Sinani and Toffolo for the second goal as well, and obviously Styles grabbed a goal, a consolation one later on for Barnsley, but ultimately, Barnsley's relegation, I think we've known this for months of the season now. You know, this was a Barnsley squad who had only won 2 matches up until February. In some instances, I do feel for Poya Asbaghi a little bit, who obviously has departed after this result and ultimately Barnsley's relegation, because he was walking into what was pretty much an impossible job, and to some degrees there was some sense of an uptrend in terms of results and performances, but ultimately he only won 3 of his 19 games in charge. He was walking into a mess and ultimately leaves that squad a little bit misshapen as well. I think there'll be a lot of moving parts at Barnsley over this summer, and at this point in time doesn't seem like a great club for that instant bounce back ability that's maybe there with Peterborough, which we'll speak about later in terms of how they're set up going into League One next season. I'd imagine that quite a few players might get picked at by other Championship clubs currently within this Barnsley setup. Obviously it's still quite a youthful team in there, but it does feel like a club who's in need of quite the reset heading into the summer, and that's going to start with the next head coach, who they're going to need to get absolutely spot on. But yeah, congratulations to Huddersfield, who now have booked their place in the top 6, currently 3rd in the Championship. 76 points from 44 matches. What a job Carlos Corberán has done there this season. Luton up against Blackpool was a bit of a strange game in the end, really. Luton got off to the perfect start, having taken the lead after just 2 minutes, but what followed was a series of strange decisions from the referee, I think it's fair to say, which ended up going against both sides throughout the afternoon. I thought that Blackpool's penalty was pretty soft, to be honest. I think it's CJ Hamilton's reaction to it, really. It's sort of a delayed reaction that he goes down with. I thought that Josh Bowler's potential foul in the box was more of a penalty for Blackpool than the one that they were actually given. Luton also had a strong penalty appeal waved away for that foul on Robert Snodgrass. The goal, which was ruled out late on, was bizarre to say the least as well. And by no means did Luton play the best in this game. Blackpool actually had more of the ball than I anticipated them to in this one, because of some injuries and things, how they've had to sort of reshuffle that side a little bit. Blackpool had their moments throughout this one, but with how some of those key decisions went against Luton, yeah, Nathan Jones, I think probably rightly so, felt quite aggrieved after that one, and decisions like that, especially towards the tail end of the season, can absolutely make all the difference in the end. So Luton, don't get me wrong, still looking in a good position to hold on to that top 6 place, but when it comes to the end of the season, looking back on, potentially where points have been dropped, I think that this will be a game where Luton just look back on some of those decisions and wonder what could have been. Next then to Birmingham up against Millwall. Much needed reaction from Birmingham in this one after how dreadful they looked last time out, and for Millwall, a little bit of a blow there to their top 6 hopes, particularly with the gap to Sheffield United now being 3 points with only 2 game weeks to go of this season. Bizarrely with Millwall, and this has seemed to be the trend with a few of their away matches recently, it seemed like a really open game this one, particularly in the second half when this one really opened up. Bacuna gets the opener for Birmingham before Burke responds for Millwall, and it's a couple of penalties for each side. Later on into this game, Lyle Taylor sticks away Birmingham's as he's always expected to, and in the 98th minute, Benik steps up for the equaliser for Millwall. Bit of a bizarre penalty towards the end for Millwall, really. It was just a bit of a tangle in the box after that long throw had come in. For Millwall, you do feel as if maybe their recent away record will end up costing them a place in the top 6. I think their last win on the road were going all the way back to the start of March, and games like this where coming in we probably expected Millwall to win with how Birmingham had been going recently, yeah, just could end up costing them at the end of the season, because with that 3-point gap to Sheffield United now, Millwall have got games left against Peterborough and Bournemouth. With Sheff United having the superior goal difference, we're probably looking at Millwall needing to win back-to-back games here to properly give them a chance of that top 6 finish. So maybe it just got away from them ever so slightly this week, although the equaliser late on from Afobe could turn out to be big. Games with Fulham and Bournemouth just never seem to disappoint, do they? This one finished as a 1-1 draw, and despite neither team particularly being at their sparkling best, there were big moments, to say the least, throughout this match. Mitrovic giving Fulham the lead, a little bit controversially so. Scott Parker adamant that the ball didn't go over the line, but goal line technology would suggest otherwise. To be fair, in real time, it does look like Travers makes an unbelievable save to sort of claw the ball away, but as the goal line technology shows, the ball just about fractionally over the line, and Fulham have the lead from there on in. Bournemouth, a little bit more of the ball in this one, but not really crafting out all too many clear-cut opportunities. Seem to get into some decent positions, but just a case of one pass too many, which has been a bit of a trend with Bournemouth at times. But then the last minute penalty, I know that Marco Silva has been adamant after the game that it wasn't a penalty, but I think that a lot of people in that stadium probably would have disagreed with that. Wilson just leaves his foot in on Smith, and then Dom Solanke, to be fair to him, nerves of steel to step up for quite the pressured penalty in the 98th minute to give Bournemouth a point from this one. We said going into this game that despite Forest making up a little bit more ground on Bournemouth this weekend with them winning and Bournemouth obviously dropping a couple of points, a point in that game isn't a bad result for Bournemouth there if they can follow it up with 2 performances in their next 2 games, which I think are fairly winnable. A couple winnable away matches for Bournemouth up against Swansea and Blackburn. So big week coming up for Bournemouth, because after that obviously they've got that crunch game against Nottingham Forest, but I think this still leaves Bournemouth in a decent enough position heading into that midweek game against Swansea. We saw Bristol City getting the better of Derby in this one as they put 3 goals past them. Some nice attacking play from Bristol City in this game, particularly in the first half. For the first goal, they sort of caught Derby out on the break. A little bit unfortunate for Derby with that defender slipping, but Martin slipping in Vyman, who now has 20 goals this season as well as 9 assists. Is Vyman the most underrated forward in the Championship? Because he's put up elite numbers this season in, let's be real, a really mediocre Bristol City side, but moments like this remind us just how deadly they can actually be, particularly on counter-attacks when their forward 3 are on song. Lovely goal from Semenyo as well to go ahead and give Bristol City that cushion going into the second half. We've seen Derby have a couple of comebacks and it seemed like that could be on the cards. Ebby away with some nice footwork down the right hand side, clips the ball into Forsyth, but Tim Close wraps this one up later for Bristol City. Ultimately 2 sides here who don't have anything to play for at this point, but yeah, some nice combinations in the first half from Bristol City, and 20 goals for Vyman in this Bristol City side I think's amazing. And we saw Hull bottom quite the show in this one as they put 3 goals past Reading. Keane Lewis Potter reminding us of just how good he is as well. 11 goals for the season now after a brace in this one. A smashing finish for the first goal especially. For Reading, wasn't to be in terms of the performance for this one, but maybe they already sort of subconsciously knew that they got over the line. Barnsley had already been relegated coming into this one. Peterborough subsequently were relegated after losing against Forest as well. So in terms of the overall picture, Reading are safe in the Championship, which was the ultimate goal for this season. But this has been a really bizarre season for Reading fans, I think, because it's had its real fluctuations in terms of highs and lows. Some of the brilliant moments we've seen throughout the year of, brilliant moments from Swift and Lucas Jow at times as well, accompanied with the lows of that god-awful losing streak that they went on towards the end of Paunovic's run there. Ince seemed to be a little bit up and down when he came in, but ultimately he's got this squad over the line and they can now go into planning for next season, which does look like it'll be a bit of an uphill battle in terms of properly regenerating this squad. Reading are one of those sides, so it seems there'll be a lot of moving pieces going on over the summer, but point deduction considered, to be safe with 2 games to go isn't bad going considering where this squad was mentally a couple months ago. After that, we saw Forest beating Peterborough by 1-0, which ultimately sealed Peterborough's fate down to League One heading into next season. But it does feel like with Peterborough, there is a little bit more security and assurance with their chances heading into League One next season. I'm not sure if all Peterborough fans share that same view, but what's sort of come out of the club, you know, Grant McCann saying that he expects around 80% of this squad to still be present in the League One campaign heading into next season. The fact they have an experienced manager who last season won League One with Hull, I think is another added benefit as well. And the obvious upturn in form that we've seen from Peterborough since Grant McCann has come in. I think that since McCann's arrival at Posh, they've been averaging just over a point per game, which in the context of this season, over the course of a full season, would have kept Peterborough up in the Championship. And even in this game against the very good Nottingham Forest side, they certainly went punch for punch with them and created some decent chances, but Forest just having that little bit more quality. Right at the end of the first half, Brennan Johnson, brilliant ball into Sam Surridge, who's doing well to lead the line for Forest at the moment, and to give them all 3 points. For Nottingham Forest, it is a massive week coming up for them, because obviously with Bournemouth dropping 2 points against Fulham, they have gained a little bit of ground on them in terms of the automatic promotion race, which still seems absolutely crazy that we're talking about for Forest, considering the circumstances at the start of the season around Nottingham Forest. But midweek is going to be almightily tough away at Fulham, but if they pick up a result there, I think suddenly the belief around this club will be absolutely, you know, flowing through everyone, you know, particularly if they, you know, get max points from games against Fulham and Swansea, then heading into that Bournemouth crunch game. All things considered, I think it was a top weekend for Sheffield United. They got past Cardiff and also saw Millwall dropping points this weekend in the process as well. We mentioned the potential lack of goals, which could be a bit of an issue for Sheffield United in their remaining fixtures for the season, but as long as they're keeping clean sheets, it looks like they may just about have enough about them to go ahead and get over the line. But to be honest, I thought that this was another example of Sheffield United actually crafting out several decent chances and probably should have been more comfortable than the 1-0 scoreline suggests. You know, on another day, Sander Berge could have had a hat-trick in this one with some of the spaces he found himself in, but Gibbs White with a brilliant ball in from the right-hand side into Ilman Ndiaye, and his header gave Sheffield United all 3 points in this one. Don't get me wrong, they've still got it all to do. Two quite tricky remaining matches away at QPR, when, you know, Sheffield United's recent away record has been a little bit patchy, and last day of the season they face a home game against Fulham, who we expect are probably going to go on and win the league, and they, you know, probably will be over the line by that point as well in terms of wrapping up the league title. So it's going to be interesting. 3-point gap now on Millwall, very much put Sheffield United back within the driving seat. Obviously still have, you know, Middlesbrough lurking as well with that game in hand, but 3 points on Millwall with a superior goal difference, not all too bad, especially with Billy Sharp coming back into the frame as well. We saw Stoke get the better of QPR in this one, and I don't think that all too many QPR fans will probably have all too many complaints about how this one ended. Stoke, the better team, took the lead just before half-time. Could have had a few more goals in that first half with some of the chances they crafted out. Westwood was by far and away the busier goalkeeper. QPR actually failed to register a shot on target for this one. Second half, QPR saw a little bit more of the ball, but didn't really do all too much with it. They went closest when they hit the post, but that was their only real sort of clear-cut opening throughout this one, and Stoke by far and away the better team and worthy of their 3 points. It also pretty much rules out QPR from a late top 6 surge as well, with them being now 6 points off the top 6, and with Sheffield United having that superior goal difference with just 2 games to go. A real shame really with how this second half of the season has unfolded for QPR, because I think it's been a mix of circumstances which have sort of bleeded into their form dramatically falling off, and yeah, it just seems like it's ended up being a little bit of, dare I say it, wasted potential this season with just how good they were playing in the first half of the season. After a goalless first half at the Liberty for Swansea up against Middlesbrough, this one really exploded into life in the second half. Now, we've seen Swansea play some wonderful football recently in the final third, but their defensive mistakes have left a little bit to be desired. That was certainly the case for Middlesbrough's opening goal. Played themselves into trouble, and to be fair, Riley McGree still had quite a bit to do for the finish. It gets a bit of a deflection in the end, but Middlesbrough go 1 up and have the chance almost instantly to make it 2, but from that resulting counter-attack, Swansea then again get back into the game. Perot linking up with Obafemi, who in the second half of the season I think has been one of the best players in the Championship. Absolutely prolific in this second portion of the season. Brilliant finish from the edge of the box, and from there on in, this game really opens up. Swansea have chances to go on to win it, but the chance that Middlesbrough fans will be looking back on is that Aaron Connolly one-on-one in the 90th minute, and he hits the post, doesn't he? Listen, I still think that with Sheffield United's remaining fixtures, Middlesbrough have a shot at the top six. They obviously have that extra game to come in midweek as well. But I think we're at a stage now where Middlesbrough probably need to win all three of these remaining matches, if we're being honest. They've got games against Cardiff, Stoke, and then Preston on the final day. They are without a win in their last 5 league matches, Middlesbrough, and the major concern has been the lack of goals, which I think has been, probably a leading concern for Borough for the majority of the season. But win those 3 and I still think they've got a good shot of the top 6. If they drop points again, which is looking likely with how their recent performances have gone, then they're probably just going to fall short. But by no means is it over yet for Borough, but they really could have done with a win in that one. And then to finish things off, we had a goalless draw taking place at the Hawthorns between West Brom and Coventry. A little bit disappointed in this one, really. I was expecting a few goals, but they just didn't materialise that way. The goalless draw pretty much rules out a top 6 place for Coventry. They're another side, 6 points off the playoffs with 2 games to go, in Sheffield United having that far superior goal difference. But superb season, all things considered, from Coventry. A real improvement from last time around. I think they'll be targeting next season in going one better than this one as well, and particularly if they do get a top half finish, I think that'll cap off what has been really quite a successful year for Coventry. For West Brom, on the other hand, these are 2 sides who are just going in polar opposite directions at the moment. That Carlin Grant penalty miss has pretty much epitomised their whole season, and the big news we got coming out of West Brom this week was the fact that Steve Bruce has confirmed that he is there to stay next season and oversee the rebuild. Now, there's no doubt that this squad needs, ripping up, and, West Brom need a bit of a hard reset going into next year, but I have to admit that I don't have all too much confidence in all of that happening under the management of Steve Bruce. I think that so far this season, what we've seen from Bruce's West Brom side, apart from a couple of flashes, I think has been more mediocrity, really. He's only won 4 of the 15 games he's been in charge of. They're slumping towards a bottom half finish. And while the squad will be completely different heading into next season, I'm just yet to be sold on Bruce being the long-term answer at West Brom. I really am. But those were all the matches we had going on in the Championship over the weekend. As always, make sure to get your views in the comments down below. We've got another game going on in the Championship tonight. I'll be there at Deepdale for Preston up against Blackburn. If you want to see my match preview and prediction for that one, make sure to go back to Friday's video to go ahead and check that one out. But we also have some other midweek games coming up in the Championship, which we'll go ahead and preview now. And we got some big games coming up in midweek as well. Starting out at Oakwell for Barnsley up against Blackpool. Bit of a dead rubber now, this game, really, with Barnsley's relegation being confirmed. I think, to be honest, I'm probably edging towards Blackpool. They were in the mood to spoil the party when they went to Kenilworth Road, putting a decent performance against Luton. I think they probably get the better of Barnsley in this one. I'm going to go 2-0 Blackpool. Maybe Barnsley just feeling that sucker punch of relegation in this one. Fulham up against Forest is an absolutely fascinating game. It'll be interesting to see what Fulham's level's at for this one, because a win for Forest in this game piles so much pressure onto Bournemouth as they go into a game against Swansea. So just for the sake of drama in and around the top of the Championship, I'll say that Forest may edge that one away from home. Maybe if Fulham go ahead and take their eye off the ball for that one. But yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle here for Forest, taking points away from Fulham at Craven Cottage. Not many sides have done that this season, but what a statement victory that would be. I'll go 2-1 Forest just for the drama. Swansea up against Bournemouth, also really vital game when we're talking about the automatic promotion race. Bournemouth probably come into it as favourites, but Swansea are no mugs at the moment. Still on the longest unbeaten record in the Championship. We've seen them having their sort of lapses in concentration at the back with some of the goals they've conceded recently, shipping 4 against Reading the way they conceded in the manner they did against Middlesbrough. But they are playing some nice football on the eye going forward. I think it could be a potential stumbling block, this one, for Bournemouth. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Maybe Bournemouth just edge that by a goal. I think that's going to be a pretty tight game, to be honest. And then last up, we've got Middlesbrough going up against Cardiff. I think this is a game where Middlesbrough have to win, really. Winless in 5, too many draws recently. I think Borough just get over the line, but ever so slightly. I'm going to go 1-0 Borough in that game, but wouldn't be all too surprised if Cardiff threw a bit of a spanner in the works with the way that Middlesbrough have been playing recently and the sort of lack of goals which has been present in their team. But as you can see to the side of me, those are my score predictions heading into the midweek matches. Do let me know down below what you see happening in each of them. But apart from that, guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. So if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. And do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Some big games coming up in midweek, and I can't wait to see how it all unfolds. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you all in the next one.